You're listening to the episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is a place we're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, it's another wonderful week in Burleson, North Johnson County. Today I have BISD Place 4 candidate and former Miss Crowley teen, Shandy Stogsdill.
Oh my gosh. Who told you to say that?
Rachel did.
Of course she did. Rachel.
So there you are. I'd like to see pictures of that, tell you the truth.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, it'd be a
I'm sure
vote-getter.
Becky Pretty has some.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Mama Pretty probably has a whole
I'm sure.
album of them. Anyway, we're going to talk about some of the things she's been hearing when she's been doing some of her listening tours and her surveys and, postings on Facebook and people responding about what they consider to be an issue for this district or among them. We like to think our district is perfect, but it will be when Shandy gets on it.
Oh.
You're going to solve all the problems.
Okay, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, you'll be all right. It's why you get into it. But anyway, we're going to talk about all these things, but let's run through the sponsors real quick because we want to get as much time as possible for the question and answer session. Thank you, Daniel Baisden, over at CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. So go over there, check out their plans, check out their training. They got classes. They got early morning classes. They got evening classes. They got the whole thing going on. So CrossFitBurleson.com will tell you about their membership plans and things of that nature. So check out CrossFitBurleson.com and get fit, don't throw a fit. It's a good motto for these days during election season.
Get fit, don't throw a fit.
I made that up for
I was going to say, Did you make that up?
Yeah.
We're sorry, Daniel.
Yeah. Also, and of course, we have Miss Shandy here with the real estate. How is the real estate market these days?
It's good.
Good. She's gotten her money's worth, so let's move on. No, it's still pretty decent.
It's good. I mean, it's not crazy like last year, but I'm not complaining about that.
Yeah, crazy. Well, good. It's steady.
It's steady.
That's what you want to hear.
Buyers are still buying.
Yeah.
Sellers are still selling.
Yeah, the world hasn't come to end because of banks crashing in California.
Oh, no. That's, mismanagement. We all know it.
Yeah, all righty. Well, darn Biden. Or can I stop blaming Obama now? I don't know. I'm a little behind.
Oh, goodness.
All right. Well, our place. Oh, by the way, our place has their new place open over in Cleburne.
I did share that. Yeah, I'm so excited.
That's where I found out. I thought it was going to be a couple more weeks at least, but now it's open. And I really like their sign. They put, "Sorry, we're open."
Yes.
Yeah. You saw that?
Yeah.
I thought, but I was there not the Cleburne one, of course, at the Burleson one last week, and it's always great. And I'm sure this will be just the same as over there because that's his method of doing business. Is good food, good service. Good golly, let's eat. So check out his new place in Cleburne.
Yeah, I'm going to drive down just to have breakfast with Sharice so I can check it out.
Oh, from the Re-Inspire.
Yeah, she doesn't know yet, but
she doesn't know
she
yet.
knows now.
Now she does,
Yeah.
and so does all my vast listening audience. Yeah, that you're going to make an appearance there, so I hope it doesn't get too crowded.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes.
All right, and also thank you to Chris over at Wild Cigar and Culture. I was there last week, dude. He had a Chamber of Commerce ribbon cutting, and it was during the show, and I got there just as they were leaving. So, but it's a really nice place, and I'm sure you've been there a couple of times.
I have been there. It is nice.
Yeah, it is, and it's a good place to do business. You ever thought about doing some campaign events over there?
I haven't thought about a campaign event. I have thought about, maybe a client event. For clients.
Yeah, they have conference room, but you go over there and have a drink and smoke or whatever, and maybe bring some of your supporters in there and have a fundraiser. I don't know what you can do.
Yeah, no. I definitely it's on my list for a client event.
Well, good.
So,
well, I know
yes.
Chris. When I talked to him, says you have his support, and he's
I appreciate it.
He's going to be hoping very strongly.
And I love to support small businesses.
Yeah, and he's going to vote for you, and he hopes you do well.
Thank you, Chris.
And thank you also to Tiffany Nico over at Local Life Magazine. It's going to be coming out in a couple weeks. This is the week she tells me the third week of the month is when it really gets hectic because she's trying to put it all together.
Yeah.
And to get it into the publisher and all this other stuff by early next week, so it'll be in your mailbox by the next week. And it could be pretty exciting, to say the least. I've been over there a couple times during this time, just because Gala's store's right next to it, so I go say hey and all that, and it's just funny to running around like trying to get everything done at one time. Finally, here's the Facebook stuff I need to start sharing so everybody get a piece of this action. Oh. Yeah, no, it's all right. It's a good
we have a lot of people who are going to have questions today?
I hope
Am I in
so.
the hot seat?
I don't know. Depends. I
like questions, though.
Yeah, well, good, because I'm going to ask you a few.
I mean, I get tired of listening to Allard sometimes.
Who doesn't? That's what I'm saying. All right, and anyway, on to the next thing. Thank you, Gayla at Southern Gym. They're still aiming to get into the store down the bottom floor in a month. Depends on contractors, depends on supplies, depends on all these things. I'm sure you're quite aware of. I know her goal is to get down there by Kentucky Derby Day.
Yes.
Because she wants to have a Kentucky Derby event.
That's fun.
Well, she's into horses and horse racing and breeding and whatnot, and so it kind of fits her
I'm gonna have to find my fascinator and go by.
Your what now?
A fascinator.
What is that?
It's not a hat.
Oh.
It's English. It's kind of like a headband sort of thing with a big, a big contraption on top. Mm-hmm. And I just taught you something.
Yes, you did. All right. Anyway, also, thank you to Michelle at Hotworks 731. I understand you just joined. Is that right?
I did. I'm going to go today, I think.
You're going to go today, huh?
Yeah. I tell myself that every day.
Mm-hmm.
I have shown up a few times, but yeah, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this is that normally, because I tend to wait a while before I work out, and then I'm like, okay, stop being lazy, go work out. And then I'm so sore that I can't walk for a few days, right? And then you're like, why do I do this to myself? I have not been sore.
Hang on. Taylor, you sent me the link, but it was I think I hit the wrong one. I did.
I'll send it again.
No, I just hit the wrong one. So
we're having technical difficulties.
No,
Michelle, Hotworks.
Yeah, Michelle.
Loving it. I'm not sore, which is great because it is a hard workout. I mean, I feel like I'm getting a great workout, but I'm not like so sore I can't move, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I just hit the wrong button as always. These things are all this technical stuff. Okay, great. I'm glad you helped me with my sponsor.
So now is not when I call you a boomer.
Yeah, no. Funny.
I'm just channeling my children. It's fine.
A boomer.
They called my youngest child called me a boomer the other day. Do you know how offensive that is to a Gen X person?
I don't know.
It's very offensive.
Yeah, okay. Thank you also to Melissa over at Texas Farm Bureau at 682-804-0534. She can check out your insurance plans, make sure that you got a good deal, and if you do, she'll tell you. If not, she can help you out. I was able to upgrade my house insurance, which is what we need to do. I mean,
yes, make sure that you have enough insurance to cover your home if a disaster happens.
It's yes, because the previous coverage I had would have been just enough.
Yes.
So I was able to, account for growth in the equity over the next decade or so by bumping it up, and it saved me about $50 a month.
And a lot of people think they just need to pay off their mortgage. That is not true. You have to replace your house. Mm-hmm. So you can have no mortgage, but you're going to have a piece of property that you can't use.
Mm-hmm. Also, we got a couple things going on. We have a B&I Visitors Day a week from Wednesday over at the Hampton. You visited a couple times.
I have, yes. It's been on my list. This is a good program. I really do think you guys are doing good things. I just have to have the time to invest in it, honestly.
It does a time commitment. And a lot of people think, when talk about networking groups, you get together for a little coffee and donuts. No, it's a pretty organized thing.
It is organized, and there's expectations, which I appreciate.
Yeah, and it's meant to generate business, but I've also become close friends with many of these people. I got 3 sponsors. Michelle's on sabbatical, you might say, but Gayla and Melissa are sponsors, and it's next Wednesday, a week from Wednesday, the 29th, starting around 8:30ish or so, 8:30ish to 10:30 roughly, and will be all these presentations and whatnot. So if you're looking to expand your business, another question I get about B&I is like, I'm already a member of this group, some other group,
right?
Am I excluded from this one? And no.
No,
several of our B&I people also go to other meetings because there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, it definitely expands your sphere for sure.
And one other thing coming on April 1st, Light Up the Night with you.
Oh, I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, the Center for ASD. They do great work.
They do.
Bianca was on about 10 days ago, so if you want to check the archives for that show, but I know I'll see her again Wednesday because she also is a member of B&I. Her aunt is becoming a member of B&I, and she'll be on a week from tomorrow.
And what does her aunt do?
Reach for Johnson County.
Oh, yeah, Reach. Okay.
Yeah, and she'll be on for the first time a week from tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. Speaking of charities, another one coming up Thursday, I'm going to have Meatmeisters on again.
Yes.
And they do the grilling for nonprofits.
Yes.
And this is how they raise the money for the meat for that. And I got a ham last year from them.
Was it so good?
Jim Dandy. I'm not a real big.
Re-Inspire's having a barbecue. I need to talk to Meatmeisters.
You betcha. And I prefer beef over ham, but ham's fine. But
ham for Easter. I love ham for Easter.
I prefer it for most things over turkey. I can tell you, I'm not a turkey fan.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to other things important. Now that we got all that out of the way. Yeah, let's get out of the way. I guess you have several topics on your mind, but when you're doing your little teacher tour, listening tours, what is one of the first things that always seems to come up?
So, I mean, I think obviously parent support is huge. There are about 4 things that are pretty consistent. Student behavior, which, and here's what I would say, many of these things are intertwined. Student behavior, admin support, parent support, and then retention and pay. So, admin support, I think that it is specific to campus because every admin is different, right? And some personality can play a role or whatever. So that would just have to be dug into. So I think admin support would be campus specific. And is it a personality or is it really there's an issue? Like we're not handling issues.
Oh, yes. I've had numerous administrators over the time, and there were some that just seem to have the gravitas is the word they like to use, but have the authority kind of people just respected that authority. And there's other administrators that were known to be a bit more easily pushed around.
Wishy-washy.
Yeah, pushed around by parents or by, or be willing to buy into stories from children or whatever else. And they think they're advocates for the children. And that's all well and good, but sometimes you need to bring the hammer with you, and they wouldn't do that. But that's just it was a person by person thing. Because I had, like I said, I had some administrators that walk in a room and things would get quiet in a hurry. You know? And so, sometimes it is personal. I think also it has to do with the age group.
Oh, for sure. And I do want to make it clear. So just so we're being transparent, I sent out a survey. 53% of the people who filled it out have been in education 10 plus years. And then 44% were teachers, because I did paras, like staff, para, and teacher, right?
Right.
And admin. 64% were elementary, and that doesn't surprise me. Our elementary teachers, they like to get in the weeds, which is just their personality.
And they're more rule followers than high school teachers are.
I would agree with that. But they're also juggling a lot more things in one day than maybe a high school teacher is.
Please.
Maybe not more kids, but more things. Their brains have to fire in different directions
They
constantly.
have to be a bit more adaptable, yes.
Yes. Let's give our elementary teachers some credit.
Well, that's what I've always said, that was one of the best parts of BISD was the elementary schools.
Yeah.
Because they were very, very strong. And they always have been. Now, as far as junior high and high schools, I think they were pretty strong too, but it just seemed like the elementary schools were just a notch above, and I think that's still the case.
Yeah, and I think elementary, I always tell people, even when, this is my advice when people are buying a home too, like a lot of people come in district, right? They're like, what district is this? And they don't have kids yet. Kids are not on the horizon. It's like, okay, so I really feel like unless there's a safety issue, right? Like elementary teachers really are good in every district. So like, I hate for people to pick a house based on district when you're talking about kindergarten, unless you know for sure, like there's some bad things that have happened in that specific school. You can't really blanket elementary. It's a lot harder.
Well, now that we have schools of choice, that probably is not quite as big a factor where you buy in Burleson, because if you can go to any school in Burleson.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a lottery system, so you still are taking a chance, right? So you can't just say,
Yeah.
we're going to buy here, and I don't really want my kid to go to that elementary. But you do have several choices, which is good. So, like, if you really do not like that elementary that you're zoned in, you have many schools of choice, and you get 3 options of schools of choice before that elementary.
Right. Lindsay Bird
Yeah.
was on here about 3 months ago, right prior to the sign-up time, and I was impressed. And I asked her, I said, is it a real possibility that you're not going to get your first choice? And she said, yeah, it's a possibility, but
Right.
most people get their first choice.
Yeah.
But that's only have them put down more than one choice, because
Yes.
in some cases. And I said, well, how do you distinguish between, okay, you have 30 spots for Fraser and you have 45 people say, I want to go to Fraser. That's when you start getting into the lottery thing.
Right.
And it's, I'm sure some disappointment and stuff goes on with that. But it's not like, okay, I didn't get into Fraser, I'm going to have to go to Taylor. They're still going to get a pretty good education at Taylor.
Right.
So it's a...
Well, Taylor's not a school of choice, though, I don't think.
No, it isn't. I get confused because I know
It's okay.
there's like about 2/3 of the elementaries are.
Yes.
But still, it's just it's a good thing to be having. I talked to these people from BISD, and I missed my time with them this month because of spring break. I'm really impressed with some of the programs, and I bet you probably have seen them now more closely since you've been campaigning.
Yes. I mean, yes. And I have kids in the district. So, like, Hadley is and I usually refer to them by numbers on Facebook. So when you start hearing names, you're like, who are these children?
Yeah.
Hadley's number 2, and she did Mound. It was one of the very first schools of choice. She went from Norwood to Mound. We had chose for her to do a school of choice in 5th grade. And then she also did STEAM. And then Chandler's number 3, and she just got into the gaming. She's at Bransom. We are districted for Bransom, but it is a school of choice. And then she got into the gaming school. So yeah, we've definitely navigated schools of choice.
Now you have said before, and I know you want to talk about this, how important it is, you think, to have at least 1 or 2 members on the board to have kids currently going through the system.
Absolutely.
So why don't you tell us all
Absolutely.
about that? Why you think that?
A lot of different reasons. I think that when you have a child who is in the education system that you are serving, you have a finger on the pulse of the community as a whole. You also have the ability to talk to other parents as parents and not as this authority that
Right.
I'm trying to find out information. It's more of, hey, these are the things my kid is struggling with. What are your kids struggling with? Is this a one-off for me? Is this something that I need to navigate, or is this a systematic problem?
Well, I think you're going to be elected. Okay, so assuming that you're elected, I'm going to
It's very sweet.
for you to be positive like that. When number 3 finally graduates, is that going to mean anything about your ability to be a board member?
Well, I have a long time before number 3 graduates.
Okay.
I mean, she's just going into 6th grade.
Okay.
And I'm only elected for 3-year terms.
Right.
So, I mean, it really, to me, my continuing on the board would depend on, number 1, where I'm at in life and if I can choose to continue to serve, right? I mean,
Right.
let's be real. We can't make long-term commitments like that. Life
Right.
happens. But also, who else is on the board with me? Can I shift from that parent role?
That's a good answer, yes.
To a different role, because we all, and honestly, I had lunch with Pat Worrell right before spring break, and I love her. So I went to school with her daughter, Trisha, and we had a conversation, and I loved Pat's take, and I think that this is completely true and a great way to view the trustees is everyone brings something different to the table. And you're better when you can lean to someone's expertise and be like, I don't need to know. I need to know about it, but I don't need to like be an expert at that, because I trust that I can come to you and ask all the questions, and you can say, this is why we believe that we should do this. And then I can make a more informed decision on how I vote.
Yes. And I've talked to board members before. I'm sure you have too.
Yes.
I wonder, are you concerned about the fact that people are going to stop you at Walmart or at the grocery store, or they're going to stop you on the street or whatever, or you're eating at our place and people say, hey, I got a bone to pick with the board. You see that's part of the job, or are you kind of concerned that may?
I mean, I think
be annoying.
that's part of anytime you're in the public eye. I mean, even in my job, there are times that I see clients and I do have to stop down and we have to talk about problems, right? Like, what's the problem? And I think how I view myself and my role is, what is the problem? What is the problem? Let's first get to the problem, not the opinion, but the real problem. And is there a way to solve it?
Right.
Most of people don't want you to solve that problem just from that conversation. They just want you to hear them.
They want you to know that there is an issue.
Yes. And then what we do with that conversation after is where the solving comes in.
Well, and a lot of people misunderstand the role of the board, like they do often with city council. Because Victoria has told me about this. They think that if, let's say, there's a teacher over at, fill in the blank elementary,
Right.
and they expect you to go and talk to that teacher,
Yes.
or call the principal and straighten that person out, or whatever else. That is not how this works.
No, that is not how it works.
Yeah, so that, we're seeing that on the city council now.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
But if somebody came to you and said, I think the third grade teachers over at fill in the blank school, I don't want to point anybody out, or the science teachers over at XYZ school are not doing their job, or they're treating my son badly, or whatever, what would your next step be?
So number one, as a parent, I probably have navigated that to some degree, especially as a current parent. I can say that in the past few years, I've had to navigate a teacher complaint. And I would try to send them through the right avenues. Because like when you're talking about it, you can't just call up and, oh, here's my complaint.
Yeah.
I know that it feels tedious and sometimes feels like nothing is getting done, but there is a reason for the system. And that is so things don't fall through the cracks. And there's always an imperfection, right? And so like we do need to be looking at, yes, we do this. What's not working about this? What is working about this? You don't just throw everything away because one simple thing is not working.
Well, if you hear this complaint about whatever they're complaining about more than once, again, you would be prohibited, but also personally, but professionally,
Right.
from intervening. You go to the superintendent.
No, but I would go to the superintendent. Like I keep hearing this,
Yeah.
right? I would at least have an ear to be like, this is not just a one-off. This is like a continual thing. Maybe we need to, I don't know, figure out how to dig into this deeper.
Right. And there is a chain of command. Like you said, it can take time and people want immediate results and whatnot. But the first thing I would say, and you've pretty much said the same thing, is have you dealt with the teacher or the administrator directly first?
Right.
Go to them first.
Have you had a conversation with the teacher, first of all?
Yeah. Right. And if you and if you're not getting anywhere with that, then you go to the next step with administration. But a lot of people think, that's that just people will just do, intervene on your behalf. When I first came to this district and we had a smaller town, a lot, the school board members are all well known to everybody, and they'd come in and visit the school and all this other stuff, and no one thought anything about it. But now that we're a larger district, you really can't have free agents going into the schools,
Right.
if they're board members, and because you're not going in as a parent,
Right.
you're going in as a board member,
Right.
and that's a different deal.
I mean, I would go in as a parent. I would have to know which hat to put on.
Well, if
essentially.
it's your kids,
right?
you're a
If it's
parent.
my child, I'm a parent.
Right, but if it's somebody else's situation, you're going to have to go in as a board member, and
Yes.
and so that's not how this works. And I think sometimes people get an unreal expectation of what board members can do, because really they only have one employee that they deal with.
Well, and people don't understand that one board member is not going to change a whole system. It's a quorum. So, I mean, I can feel very strongly about something, and if everyone else is like, I'm not seeing it, it's really not going to do me any good to constantly battle about this one thing that I think needs to be changed, right? You have to find a way of like, okay, I really do feel this way. How do we find a compromise on this?
Well, from what I understand, is that some of those executive hearings or board meetings that are closed to the public can get pretty intense. But what I've seen over the last 20 years, 25 years, is they come out and they at least present a unified, It may
Right.
not be unanimous vote, but they have a unified front, even if it's 5-2 or something like that.
Right.
They don't air their grievances out in public. They've aired them already.
Well, and some of that is the public has elected you. So it's really the public's job to take you out of that role if they don't see that you're doing the proper job.
Right.
It's not another member's job to backbite or to go around or to, that's not their job.
I haven't seen that on the school board.
No. No, but I'm just saying in general.
In representative politics,
Yes,
you're right.
in general.
Now, what are some of the issues that we kind of?
Well, we were talking about admin,
right.
parent support. Some of that, I'd want to talk about parent support. And these are some of the things that I just want to run through a couple of these that I asked them what they would want parents to know. And most of it is that they work really hard for your kids, that they love your children, that they really do want the best for your kids, that they do this job out of passion. And then they do everything they can to help your child succeed. But they also need to know that they're not punching bags.
Right.
They're human beings. They need support. When we are constantly throwing up to teachers that their summers are off, many of them are doing professional development during the summer or developing what the next year looks like that summer.
Right.
A lot of teachers work extra jobs in the summer, like firefighters. Our firefighters sometimes work 2 and 3 jobs. Teachers are very similar.
I had, particularly when I was younger, I had several jobs in the summer times over the years.
Right.
Before the kids got to a point where I need to stay home a little bit, but even I still did all the professional development. I had a week at TCU for AP programs. I remember one summer I worked for a Japanese moving company.
Yeah.
I was the only non-Japanese employee. It was great because they treated me great. And, the customers and the employees were all very, it was great. It was
they're very courteous people.
very courteous, and they paid for lunch if I was out doing moving with them, and they were at lunchtime. They bought lunch. I mean, it was a good experience. But that's another story.
Yes.
But I'm just saying this idea that teachers, you get all this time off. They
Right.
do get Christmas and they do get spring break, but as far as summertime,
But let's be real, most people get 2 weeks paid vacation.
Yeah.
Right?
or
Some 3, some 5. I mean, some people who've worked in a corporate job for 20 plus years have 5 or more weeks paid vacation.
well, in the summertime, my time was looser, but I still had obligations, and
For sure.
I did not wait until when school started up again and in service on that to start revamping my lesson plans. I did that all summer long.
Right.
Now, I'm not working 8 hours a day, but I was working I would guess, prep time and research time, whatever, 15 to 20 hours a week.
Well, and I'd want to point out, I think this is a good place to say that as the state requires more minutia for our teachers to do, our teachers' free time becomes less and less their own. But also, it will push these teachers who are talking about, your child is my passion, this job is my passion. It's going to push them out because literally they are going to become just paper pushers. And they won't have time or the energy to actually really teach each child.
Well, and if you added the hours while school is in session, and almost every teacher I know worked more than 40
Well,
hours
it
a
says
week.
I work 10 to 12-hour days easily.
Yeah, right. So if you could pine that over a yearly time, it's pretty close. For me, fortunately, I enjoyed the subjects I taught. So for doing the research, doing the lesson plans, revamping the PowerPoints or the lessons or readings wasn't a drudgery, but it's still time.
Yes.
And but during the school year, particularly elementary teachers, I think they really there's no such thing as an 8-hour day.
Right.
I mean, they get there an hour and a half earlier or an hour earlier.
Well, they got to work the line for pickup. Not everybody works that,
Or
but
cafeteria
it's cafeteria duty.
Yeah,
they have line duty. They have all the duties.
Oh yeah. Well, once like with us at the high school, about every 6 weeks, it'd be my turn for a whole week to do cafeteria duty in the morning. Prior to the classes starting, and so. You get there about 7:45, and by 8:15, it was a riot going on in there. So
right. Well, and I don't think any teacher is complaining about their job. They just want to feel supported. They need to feel supported by the admin. They need to feel supported by parents. Like, I can tell you personally that, none of my kids' education has been perfect. None of them are perfect. but
Hadley's pretty nice.
she's also not perfect.
Okay.
But more often than not, when number one, I always tried to approach a teacher when we started this school year. We are partners. This is a partnership. If you have an issue, I am open to the issue. This is a dialogue. I remember when my children were little, they would come home with some big story about their teachers. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute.
Oh, yes.
Because it did sound very like, oh my gosh, how could that teacher possibly do that to you? And then I have to remember that we're talking to a 6-year-old. Everything is big to a 6-year-old. And I'm not saying that there are not instances, but I think that when we approach it as, I'm going to go to the teacher and I'm going to be like, hey, this is kind of what's said. What's your take? Right. It makes it where we don't feel like we're in a battle right off. And usually when I'm coming with kindness, they're also going to reciprocate in kindness. Sure. And they're going to treat my children with kindness.
Well, one of the values, and it's kind of tied into another thing, teacher retention. One of the values of having a veteran staff is that after a while, people in the community know you, even if their kids aren't in your class. And so when I have had a conflict or two with a student, which was very uncommon, but if I did, I got the benefit of the doubt because I'd been there a while and they knew who I was, and they taught my older son and on and on. And so that's why it makes teacher retention so important, is that institutional memory, as they call it, where, when I was there, like my 25th year at the high school, and we had, all these new teachers and all this, I was able to say, well, this is how things work. This is a person you need to know, blah, blah, blah.
Well, and you connected generations together, too.
Right. And
I can talk to kids that were really young and be like, oh, you had Allard, too. It's like we have that common thread.
And I had some children of former students.
Yeah.
And that was always interesting to me. But as far as the retention issues, there's a whole lot that goes into that, including pay and insurance and things of that nature.
Yes.
Does that come up very often in your conversations?
I didn't hear pay did come up. Pay does come up. Again, this is coming from paras and teachers. So I do know that specifically the paras are not happy. They only get paid $13.25 an hour.
And just about every retail outlet pays better than that.
Do you know what a para does?
Yes, I married one. But, all right. Now, Robin was considered a para, but she was in a kind of a different status in certain ways.
But elementary paras, especially like special ed paras.
Those are tough jobs.
For $13.25, like you are asking them to physically have a very physical and mentally stressful job. And I do feel like that needs to be addressed.
Well, like in Robin's case over at Centennial, she worked with paras a lot, and she just come home and said, I don't see how they do it, because special ed paras, or because that's what most paras in the classroom are dealing with, special ed students, or they're inclusion teachers and such as that. And then you have of course the office staff, and sometimes they take the brunt of frustrations from parents on the phone, occasionally frustrations from teachers, or whatnot. But the special ed paras in particular, Robin would just like, I don't know how they do it.
And let me be very specific here. Para retention for special ed children is very important. Especially, like, I have an autistic son who is very high functioning, but autistic children, consistency is key. So when you are constantly, like, they will flip out. I remember, and mine did not have a lot of the issues that a lot of autistic kids had, but I remember we had to park in the same place every day. There had to be, there's consistencies that have to happen. And it's not because he was throwing a fit. It's like literally it would spin him off on a tailspin if I parked somewhere else. His whole day was different. So when you're talking about paras who are working with kids who they need somebody consistently, and you have turnover after turnover of turnover because you're paying them $13.25 an hour, everyone is suffering.
Well, almost all the paras I dealt with had a connection to the school other than just they want to help. They may have had a child in the system or some other close relative, and they thought that would help them stay near their children.
Sure. But I mean, there's only so much a person can take.
Well, right. And I can't tell you, every year we get new parents because the old ones would say, I could go work at Target for more money and less stress. And better insurance.
Yes.
And all those things. And so that's another thing. The insurance, I don't know how much the district could handle that, but the insurance was it wasn't so much that when I was there, the teachers were complaining about, over in Mansfield, they're getting paid like thousands of dollars more. It was insurance issues.
Yeah, and I haven't heard that. I'm not going to say that it's not an issue. Like I have friends who are in the district who I know we've talked about insurance and how expensive it is. But as a whole, like that's just me talking to my friends. I would like to just dig into it. I mean, I think insurance is a problem for everybody these days.
Well, it is.
So why wouldn't it be for the district? Nobody has it perfect, but we've got to figure out a way to get teachers better insurance, just because that does affect their pay.
Well, it does.
It could balance out.
I knew teachers that had like family of 4, and they're paying like $800 more a month.
That's a lot.
Or in some cases, like 3 kids or 4,
right.
$1,200. But what really, this is not just a BISD problem; it's a state of Texas problem.
I agree.
And for the life of me, I don't understand why it has to be a district by district decision about who's going to do with insuring and what they're going to offer, instead of doing a statewide system like they do for every other state employee.
I don't think that's going to get answered, because if anybody has noticed, the state of Texas is trying to privatize everything.
Oh, well, it's a rumor, I guess. I'll talk to my friend Greg.
They privatized CPS.
I'll talk to my friend Greg and Dan. You know what I'm talking about?
I would not call them friends, but...
Neither would a lot of school administrators. But no, that is one reason I'm concerned. We talked about school choice and voucher issues with Ryan Richardson about 10 days ago. And was it last week? I don't know. I get my days mixed up.
No, it wasn't last week. I think, was it? No, it wasn't last week.
No, it was before spring.
Week before.
No, it was actually Monday. It was on spring break.
Gosh,
all right, so it was a week ago. Sorry, Ryan.
This is what happens when you get old.
Check out the show.
1 week feels like.
Whoa, yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, he was on last week. We talked about vouchers and privatization, and he is opposed to vouchers. Even
I am too.
Some people may wonder why, but he is opposed to vouchers because he knows what the damage would do to the district.
Well, and the damage would do to the general education system as a whole. Because when you are letting people, it's just like a free-for-all for education. There's no standard. So the rich will be able to pay for the best education, and the poor will get whatever's left over. Whether it be in the public system or the private system, it will not matter. You will just create private schools that serve the rich, and then you will have the leftover for people. Oh, sorry, you can't afford that. We can't do that. Or we tell you we do it, but there's no oversight, so they really don't do it.
Well, when Mr. Mitchell, one of your opponents, was on, you had a really good conversation with him online, so to speak, and he also had the same opinion about vouchers as well. I know if you came out in favor of vouchers, Ms. Tatum would come and put a knot on your head.
Yes, but I think here's my thing. Like, realistically, if I want to serve in the public school system, I shouldn't support vouchers.
Well,
it doesn't make sense.
The reason why, to be fair to Ryan, the reason why he put his kids in Holy Cross was not for academic only at all. I mean, it's a good school, but it also the spiritual aspect. And he wants to put his kids back into BISD when they're old enough to take advantage of the broader academic setting.
Right.
And so, and I did the same thing with Hayden and Sarah, my kids. But I liked his answer, though, that he was firmly opposed to vouchers because he said it's a decision we made, his wife and I.
Right. As was the decision we made to put our oldest in private school.
Well, that was because of his
neurodivergency.
Yes. And so that voucher system, I'm almost sure is going to get passed though this session, and I'm concerned about it because to me, I've said this several times on the show, it's a subsidy for people who already can afford to send their kids to.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I did a public. If anybody really wants to know, like we don't have really the time to completely dig in. But if you want to know my feelings on vouchers, like if you go to my personal page, I actually did a public post about vouchers. And coming from a person who did pay for private school for a child and how people misunderstand, number one, the cost of private school, and number two, what a private school will do for you. Like, here's the thing. They don't have to take your kids.
Yeah.
And they can kick them out for any reason. Like, I mean, really, any reason. They can be like, oh, well, you just can't come back.
Well, my time at Southwest Christian was well spent in the sense I got to see both sides of the issue.
Yes.
And in Southwest Christian's a good school, and they had excellent teachers, at least in my tenure there. And so I have good things to say about it, but I also knew that a lot of the things that afflicted, if you want to use that word, my BHS students, they also were a problem for the Southwest Christian kids, but they had the wherewithal or the family support or the whole issue to get through these and navigate through these things.
Right.
And I would just feel badly that if money was being taken out of the public system to help people from Mira Vista go send their kid to a country day, or something like that, they don't need the help.
Right.
Now, I really like the school of choice thing because I think it's indicative. Let's say that I'm just going to pick an elementary school out of my hat. Let's say is Bransom's a school of choice?
Yes.
Okay, good. I get confused.
Arts.
All right. Let's say that they get a flood of people that want to go to Bransom. That's very indicative of what kind of school Bransom is.
Right.
And if they have another school that's no one's choosing, that's indicative. Another data point.
It does put a flag on, okay, why is no one choosing it? What can we do? Who do we talk to? Yeah.
So I think that kind of internal free market system, if you will, I support. But as far as making it harder for public schools to do their job, just so people over from Overton Ridge can send their kid to Trinity Valley, that doesn't fly with me at all.
Yeah, and I do want to also state that while I was able to afford private school for my son, I am from a single family home. Like there was no way. Honestly, I went to a state college. The only way I was going to state college was through scholarships. I had scholarships, I had grants, and I had financial aid. Like that is literally the only way I could have gone to college.
Right.
So this system would have been the downfall of me. I would not be sitting in this chair.
Well, and a lot of people could say that. And, and it drives me crazy about how we finance our schools and even in the public sector, but that's a whole nother show. But as far as there's a lot of things that affect the teacher in the classroom that really the teacher nor the district really have a lot of control over.
And that's where the teachers did say there's a lot they can't do. There's a lot of red tape. And a lot of that red tape comes from national and state legislation. I also shared a blog on my campaign site, a great blog. If you want to know what the state is legislating, like what they have brought to the table for 2023, it has every single one of them. Click on them, read them. These are the things that they're talking about. And I think when you have these sources, like I don't really have time, to listen to every single meeting, and nor do I have probably the patience for it of our state legislator. It's like watching C-SPAN all day. I just don't I can't do it. But you have people who do, like Sarah Carlson does really well for the city of Burleson.
Outstanding work for us.
That is
on our own time and effort.
And that's a gift that I do not have. But I would 100% encourage people, local, state, national, find those people who are really just bringing down the bare bones and trying their best not to skew.
Yeah. Here's another thing. This is semi-related. People watch television, particularly like Fox, and they'll see something going on in the Virginia school district going crazy. And they think there's happening in the BISD. And they'll say, we're having this, that, and the other, just like they're over in Fairfax, Virginia. I'm like, no, we're not.
Well, and it's so important to be you have to be engaged locally. You have to know, and that's why I do feel like it is harder for people who do not have kids in the district, because it has to be intentional. And you have to intentionally talk to current parents. You have to intentionally talk to teachers. There are certain things that I'm automatically going to know just because I get all the newsletters and I kind of know what's going on. And I'm also friends with parents. So they're like, did you hear this? Did you hear that? Because our kids are going through the same things at the same time, where it does make it harder when you are retired or don't have children in the district, either end, whether you're young and don't have children in the district or you're retired and don't have children in the district. It's easy to say when you see on a news channel, this is an issue, and assume it's an issue for your district when it's really not.
Well, nothing offends me more when I hear people, particularly outside the system, make accusations of BISD. Because I know that they're either ignorant or politically motivated to make these kind of comments. But we're not teaching critical race theory in school. That's so stupid.
Right.
And we're not grooming anybody to be activists or worse, Democrats.
Oh my.
The D word. But they say that we're trying to groom them in certain ways, and also to make insinuations for inappropriate ways.
Yeah.
And they're just liars. That's all they are. They don't know what they're talking about in the district. We're not teaching race theory.
Well, I think that our political landscape, if you want to learn anything about the political landscape in the last several years, it's driven by fear. And fear does a lot to people. When we feel fearful of something, we immediately want to fight, right? We immediately want to, it's a fight or flight. They are getting into our fight or flight, natural reptile brain reactions. And when you can do that, you can create power for yourself.
Well, and they see stuff going on in maybe either Texas districts and think that's happening here. No, that's not happening here.
I think my challenge for that would be, ask the question. Don't make the assumption.
Well, and just if they really know how school works, we don't have time, or I didn't, and they don't now have time to indulge any kind of political stuff. And, they don't have time to go on these variations of the course because they got to get the tax test or STAR test, rather, an AP test taken care of. They got to get through curriculum. If you're a coach, you got your season, you're already working 80 hours. You don't have time to go investigate how I can bring in critical race theory to this discussion. It drives me crazy because I think it's all part of a larger scheme to take over schools.
It's just fear mongering, what it is.
And they're using these things as a method to try to get people motivated to think, wow, what are they teaching?
Here's what I'm going to tell you. I went to the University of North Texas. I was a history minor.
Oh, no, that well-known radical.
It was a very liberal school. And I was a history minor, you guys, and critical race theory was not even offered to me.
Yeah. Well, it's... You look at the TEKS, for the teachers that teach all these things, they're pretty extensive. Yeah. And they do include a multiracial type of approach in the social studies.
As I would hope they would.
As you should hope they would. And so, the idea that when I teach AP history, I'm teaching, civil rights in the 1960s or early 20th century civil rights movements or whatever else, that's not critical race theory. That's American history.
Right.
And it drove me nuts. And honestly, very, very rarely was I ever asked about that kind of stuff. Maybe once or twice in 28 years did everybody make a comment or a question about me teaching non-white, if you will. Almost all the parents expected a full spectrum of history to be taught.
Well, my parents grew up in segregation. It's something we talk about regularly. I just had a conversation with my mom about the Florida book ban, not book banning, but changing
of the AP history of African American history?
And the way they state the way Rosa Parks.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I was like, what? And my mom, a white woman that grew up in segregation, was like, what is happening?
Well, my parents are the same way. I was one of the first kids. I've talked about this before. I talked about Mr. Mitchell. I was one of the first kids to be bused in the country because I went to the school district of Charlotte, North Carolina when I was a little kid. And that was the Supreme Court case. And it was never an issue in our house. And I asked them later, weren't you ever concerned? And it was the distance more than the racial makeup of the class I was sitting in. They were concerned about me being 45 minutes away. And they also saw what was happening in high school where it was an issue. But for us fifth graders, we're just kids.
You're just kids.
Yeah. And so
kids don't see all of that.
No, particularly if you're raised in a home that doesn't make you aware of it. And I will tell you, everybody knows we are avid travelers in our family, and I think that if you want to make humanity, bring a streamline to humanity, travel. I mean, travel other countries, travel other cultures, travel other languages. It really does prove to you, like, we are all just human beings. Well, teaching school did that for me. I don't travel as much as I surely would like to do more, but teaching did that for me because, I encountered kids in all sorts of situations, different, not just racial status, but, economic status.
Right.
educational status. Maybe, I met my first group of single moms in my class. They were young mothers.
Yes.
And it really tears down
circumstantial.
It tears down your preconceived ideas.
Sure.
And, it wasn't something that was prominent in the early part of my career, but the latter part of my career, we started seeing, gay and lesbian children, all right, LGBTQ and all that. And
it was prominent. They just weren't talking about it.
Right. It was there.
Right.
And you probably as a student knew things that I did not know as a teacher, and that's fine. That's normal. But, whatever I had thought about that, I had to apply that to this person and says, is that really appropriate?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it changed my perspective on a lot of things, because this is my student. He's a good guy. He has a lot of things going on. Do I really need to drop all this on him, my personal opinion and perspective?
Right.
And so my horizons were greatly broadened. That doesn't mean I abandoned any principles or anything like that. I acquired new principles that would...
Or we just treat people with kindness,
right?
Whether we agree with them or not,
right? And also the fact that it's like, how dare I make their life harder?
Yeah,
they don't need me to make their life harder, and so it is a deal, and that's why I get so offended when we do have a small segment in this community that think that we're liberalizing our students and we're not teaching them good moral values and American values, and that's just complete
so
rubbish.
I think let's break that down.
Yeah,
it's my job as a parent to teach my children moral values.
Right.
I do not feel like it's the school district's job to teach my kids moral values. I think that it's their job to protect them. I think that it's their job to be kind to them. I think that it's their job to try their very best to give them an education, whether they're dyslexic or ADHD or any of the neurodivergencies, like to really work hard at doing the best to teach to my child.
Yeah.
It's my job to make them good human beings. And, there's always going to be parents that don't feel that way, or I doubt that. I really don't feel like any parent doesn't want their kid to be a good human being. I just don't.
Right.
I think that life circumstances, sometimes just things slip through the cracks, and then they just don't know how to manage it, like to manage it all. But when we are putting the pressure on the school district to completely raise a child, when we outsource the raising of our children, that is where we fall short.
I saw that more at Southwest Christian than BHS to a large degree, because it was a Christian school.
Right.
And a lot of parents sent their kids because of that, and they grew up in a certain type of Christian home. But I also saw parents and grandparents trying to use Southwest Christian as a rehabilitation center.
Yes, that happens too a lot in private schools.
Right. Now, as far as BHS, we took them all, so it didn't really matter. As far as raising them, this is why I think Ryan put his kids at Holy Cross. He doesn't endorse the idea that the school should be imparting moral values from any particular perspective until, so that's why they did what they did. But because I know that, people say we need to have God in school. I say, well, we need God in the homes and God in school.
God is in school, because when my children are carrying God with them everywhere they go.
Yeah.
You're not going to take that out of them.
Well, I think what they mean is they want like prayer before classes and more acknowledgement of God, and that's great. It's I suppose but not really when you think about it, because the school has to be a neutral zone for that, and that what's taught in the home, faith,
but are
all
these
those issues where
I think
happens.
my question, see, my faith has been forged in fire, so we could go off on the faith for a while, just because I was not raised in what was considered a 2-parent Christian home. I was saved when I was 7. We won't, we can go down that line of how my faith developed, but I think it's interesting that is it the tradition that we miss? Because I'm going to tell you, I've sat in many, many, many prayer and been totally absent from what is happening in that.
Well, go ahead.
Or is it that we're teaching our children to see God in other people, to serve other people as God would serve them, because faith is more than just saying words.
Well, what I think a lot of people talk about, we need more faith in schools. They want their faith in the
Well,
schools,
yeah.
as opposed
Right.
to what if I don't quite caught into that idea?
Right.
Well, that oh gosh,
Well,
I can't think
do you
of.
know why there's a denomination on every corner in
Yeah.
every city? Because none of us can agree
That's why there's so many
on
Baptist
how
churches.
the Bible is supposed to be interpreted.
We got
So
9 Baptist churches here, right?
how do we think that the public school is going to make that happen?
Well, and even if they have some sort of very a generic kind of watered down acknowledgement of God like they used to have back when my parents were in school. Personally, I wouldn't have a big problem, but I know some people that would, and we got to have a situation where they got to go to a public school and not feel like that they're an outsider. And the fact that they say the reason we have so much trouble in schools today is because we don't pray
Yeah.
for school. That's not the reason. So we don't pray at home enough. All right,
Yeah.
church attendance is way off too. So why are we blaming the schools for a decline in faith?
Right.
That's just nuts. And
Yeah.
so these people want to bring in God in schools. I don't even think they're talking about the kind of God you and I are talking about.
Right.
They're talking about
It's the tradition.
yeah.
I think they miss
so-
the tradition. And I think we all miss certain traditions about our childhoods. I mean, there are just certain things that it brings back good memories for us. But our traditions aren't necessarily our kids' traditions.
Well, I never grew up in a public school that prayed because by the time I was in public schools and old enough to know what was going
and
on.
my parents did. We've had
Yeah.
that conversation.
And my parents did too. But as far as like other traditions, I don't have a problem with saying the Pledge of Allegiance at all, including the nefarious phrase "under God." I think that should stay because we're all Americans. We're all in America, even if we're all in various stages of faith or lack thereof. I never could really answer the question strong enough to satisfy some students. Why are we praying before graduation? Is there a church and state? And I go, well, I really haven't, and I'm still to this day don't have a solid answer for why we do that. And would I take it away? Are you kidding? I don't want my house firebombed.
Yeah, I think these are questions that, at the end of the day, how are our children being educated to bring more to society as a whole, as far as education, not faith, not faith. That's not the school's job. But like, how are they finding their passion? How are they deciding what their role into adulthood is going to be in their careers? How are they developing relationships with their peers so they work well with others?
I, as a Christian man and a Christian teacher, I'd be very uncomfortable being given that responsibility to my students.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I would hope you would. To me, being a minister or a pastor is a calling. It is given from God. Like, to just say that every teacher that enters the building should have the responsibility of also the soul of every child it's too much.
I'd like to think, I hope that my former students thought of me as a Christian man, but I would not want to be in charge of developing their faith because that's between them, their families, God, etc.
Yes.
And I would be. What if my children were in a situation where that other teacher is giving them something totally different than what I was taught and teaching them in church and Sunday school and all this? Had different faith values or different understanding of this particular scripture, and he or she, my son or daughter, being subjected to that person's
it opens up a whole other, I mean, you're just talking about, it opens up a whole other line of discontent.
Yeah. Well, we run pretty long on all these things. And so we're about out of time, but you need to have the last word. And also we'll talk about your next appearance.
Well, I think really it's just, my desire is to serve the people of Burleson. I've talked about this many, many times of this community raised me. I mean, the teachers, the parents, my parents, just the whole community raised me. And I think that it's important that we take the time to give back. And this is how I can give back. And so I would hope that people would vote for me in the thought that I don't take it anything we discuss is never taken lightly. It is, everything that I talk about or think about is done so fervently. I I try to look at all angles. I try really hard not to bring my own perceptions by themselves, even though they're there.
Right.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing either. I bring something different to the table than a lot of people, just because of my childhood was different than some kids. And my faith was formed differently than some kids, and my education was different than a lot of people. So,
well, it's even if it's election season, next couple of weeks, I'm kind of deviating from that. I got tomorrow I have an open date, so I'm gonna probably talk about some more of the crimes against humanity that Joe Biden's committing, or something like that. You know how
I love real politics.
Yeah.
I hate politics.
Well, I'm also going to be looking at what happened in tonight's city council meeting.
Yes, I'm gonna try my best to go.
No, I'm going to be
see what
paying
happens.
close attention to that, because there's a lot that's going to be going on. Now, by the time some people hear this, the meeting will have already been taking place.
Right.
So I would encourage you to check out Municipal Matters page, and particularly agenda item 8D, because that's where a lot of the more contentious discussion may be held. But I also have Meat Meisters on the 23rd. I have Harvest House on the 27th, Reach Across Johnson County the 20th, and somebody you may know, Candy Gal from Mortgage, and she's a mortgage lender.
Yeah,
Right?
I do.
Yeah, from BNI. She'll be here a week from Thursday, because she'll talk about, not just BNI stuff, but also, the mortgage industry and whatever else.
Getting your countdown music.
Yeah, that's Taylor saying, "Hey, bud, you only pay me for so long."
Right. This was a long Oscars program.
Yeah. I like to thank the Academy and have a long list. Thank you, Taylor, for hanging in there while we
As
vent our
always.
spleens. So go vote for Shandy. How's that for an ending?
Thank you.
All right.
Please do.
All right. I'll talk to y'all later.
Okay.